Bananas. Bananas. Hello, and welcome to a very special episode of Movie Night with Andy and Gabe. I'm Andy.
And I'm Gabe.
This is a very special episode because I've realised that I always start out strong with a radio voice, and then as the episode goes on, I start going, but not this time. This time, I'm going to be rock solid. I'm going to be speaking like Howard Stern. Today, we're talking about Woody Allen's Bananas, Bananas, which was your suggestion, your jungle movie, your Papillon, if you will.
That's right, yeah.
So, I'm gonna just get this straight out of the way. This is a film that I think I like about 55% of the time, and the other 55% of the time I'm waiting for it to get onto the next part, because my experience with Woody Allen has always been, I'm a big Woody Allen fan, although I've only seen Ants. That joke, that was me for my entire life up until now. And I've got to say, I wasn't expecting this movie to essentially be a series of sketches, which is exactly what this film is. How did you come to find Bananas, Bananas?
Okay, let's do the plot breakdown. So we have Woody Allen's character is a sort of hapless, mediocre professional who happens to meet a young college student activist, and in order to impress the girl, he starts getting more and more into political activism. Eventually, she breaks up with him, which is emotionally devastating, so he decides to go to the country of San Marcos, where they were going to go and do their political activism, and he gets caught up in the civil war between the new regime and the rebels. He ends up fighting for the rebels. Eventually, he becomes the president of San Marcos, and this causes him to reunite with the girl that he had lost in the beginning. That's basically the overall sketch out of this movie.
And it makes it seem like there's more of a plot than there actually is.
Yeah. So to return to your question of what I thought, you are absolutely correct. And I want to preface this by saying, you had not seen a Woody Allen film. You saw a movie that he did a voice role in, but you had not seen a Woody Allen film. This would have been your first. When I start people with Woody Allen's work, this is not the movie that I would ever start anyone with. I would usually start them with Annie Hall. It's a very straightforward kind of film. It doesn't have nearly as much wackiness as this one does. And you're quite correct to say that this was really kind of a series of sketches. And this is what I found so odd returning to this movie. To give you a little bit of background on my history with it, this was a movie that my dad watched when I was very, very little, too little probably to be watching it. But my brother and I found this movie hilarious when we were little. These were the funniest movies to us when we were little kids. And so watching it as a little kid, it was one of my favorite comedies of all time ever. Watching it now as an adult, I'm a little bit baffled by it. It really is a series of sketches, loosely connected by his own personal motivations. And I was kind of surprised at how jumbled it was. But the thing that really gets me is he's in the situation where he goes to San Marcos and does all this political activism because he was trying to impress the girl, and the girl left him. But he kind of goes there because that's where they were going to go when they were still together. I don't understand why that compelled him to go there. He never had this moment where he was like, I'm going to go really find myself, or I'm going to go become the person that she wanted me to be, or I'm going to go become the person that I want me to be. He just kind of goes there and he gets wrapped up in all this. And by the end of the film, neither of them really change. He never discovers any love for the people of San Marcos. He never discovers any a real interest in geopolitical activity or anything. And she never really has a moment where she's like, oh, I love this guy and I didn't realize I loved him even when I took his fake beard off. She never had that. Neither of them have an arc, really. It's really just kind of an excuse to go on this tour of a sort of Woody Allen's best of sight gags demo reel sort of thing. As they say in your country, I'll continue to slag the movie off for a minute before I tell you what I liked about it. The other thing I thought was weird is that the movie never really comments on any of its own portrayal of the politics in Central America or the U.S. The only time it does is when Esposito is made president, and then he immediately becomes just another tyrant, and then they immediately have to have another revolution to get rid of him. The news footage of the assassination of the president is very much how American television is just, the news on American television is just entertainment, just like it might as well be sports.
I thought that was very funny. I thought that was
I like that was what me too. I like that a lot. I think maybe the best opening of any of his movies, and he actually had Howard Cosell there doing it, and a little bit with the CIA. There's a very brief scenes where the CIA is like, yeah, well, we're not taking any chances. We're backing both sides this time, and just sort of the feudal nature of these really violent revolutions. But apart from that, it really doesn't comment very much on anything. It's really just a bunch of sight gags. What I like about it is, first of all, of course, the way that it's shot. The cinematography is incredible. I really like comedies that take a very serious approach to the way that they're shot and the cinematography. I seem to really like those. The performances, I thought Esposito is I think he's one of the funniest characters in any movie. He played it 100% straight. The movie even made fun of him a couple of times, like when he sang the Rebel song and everybody thought it was stupid. And I thought he was hilarious. The performances were great. I think this has maybe the funniest scenes of any of Woody Allen's films. In particular the part where he has to do a raid for them, and he decides to order like 1,000 sandwiches. And that
just
whole
at the
thing
very end. At the very end, this is a hold up.
Yeah, it's hold up, and then they got to wheel like they would have that many employees or that many ingredients. That was hysterical. The part where he has to inject the ambassador with sodium pentothal, and he ends up injecting everybody, and then he has to he slides down the car with them just to pretend like that's normal. I thought was hysterical. God, it's like almost every scene, it was just nonstop wall-to-wall laughs, but without any real structure, but no narrative. Yeah, it was really strange.
There is less plot in this movie than Ernest Goes to Jail.
Yeah, I think that's true. There really isn't. It's really just as my brother I used to say, it's really just one long excuse for itself, and it's a good excuse. I'm glad it exists, but and it was 82 minutes. It feels a lot longer than that, but
82 minutes
I don't know.
long and 52 years old.
That's right. Holy cow. Yeah.
And I gotta say,
well, anyway,
I was looking at Woody Allen and I was like, Jesus Christ, how old is this man today? And he's really, really old. But he has looked good precisely never in his life. I did the maths and he was about 34 to 35 when he did this. And my God, get a haircut, Woody. I've got to say, though, I've got to say, someone that had no interaction with anything he'd done ever other than the obvious jokes that people make about Woody Allen today, I did think he was funny. I did think it was funny, and a lot of the jokes have got that sort of working class, almost like English vibe to them, of like when he wants to buy the porn magazine, but he's too much of a little fucking soy boy to just do it. And then he's like, yeah, Time magazine, National Geographic, Entertainment Weekly, like gets all this stuff together. Yeah. And then the guy just goes, yeah, you got Orgasm magazine back in the... Woody Allen here wants to buy Orgasm magazine. Like,
hey Bob,
that got me.
How much for a copy of Orgasm? What? Orgasm? This man wants to buy a copy.
and of course, an incredibly early role from your boy Sylvester Stallone.
That's right.
And
that's right. He played one of the muggers on the train.
Yeah, and I found out about this by sheer coincidence because Sylvester Stallone put on his YouTube channel like a life lesson. I went, okay, sure, I'll take a life lesson from Sylvester Stallone, who wouldn't? And he talked about how he harassed Woody Allen into getting on the film. He went and auditioned for it. They went, he doesn't really look like a tough guy. He doesn't really look intimidating. So he went back with his friend who played the other guy, and they just got like grime from the streets, rubbed it all over their faces, and then just like assaulted Woody Allen, basically just snuck up behind that patting him and said, hey, we're intimidating now. And apparently Woody Allen just sort of nodded and was like, yeah, you got the part.
That's right. And the thing is, the cool thing is Woody Allen actually likes it when people do shit like that. Which is why he hired him. But I was a little disappointed when he told me that you'd seen that video, because I wanted you to be. I wanted that moment where you're like, oh my god, is that Sylvester Stallone? And I didn't get that.
I absolutely would have had that. But the thing is the video. There was no way I could have ever known, because he doesn't say how I got the part in Bananas.
Right.
And the chances of him uploading that just like a couple days before we're doing this, as because I would have been like, hey, because I like Stallone. How fascinating is it as well, like the way the wheels of time go, because Stallone, I would say today, is probably quite a bit better known than Woody Allen is. But at the time, Woody Allen was known and a director, and Stallone was doing a tiny little bit part in his movie. And it's interesting to see how their careers developed.
I got to tell you, sort of that gives me kind of a springboard to talk about another element of this film that I always liked. And this is more of a sort of a personal tale of mine, but that movie really gave me a lot of sort of moral instruction about how to deal with insecurity and anxiety, especially that train scene. I've been in situations like that where there's something really scary and ghastly happening next to me, and he's just like holding the paper up and shaking, just pretending that he doesn't see any of it. But he doesn't. But the thing that I really like about the way his character's portrayed is he never lets fear completely stop him from doing something. Even though he was afraid, he did kick those guys off the train, and then they came right back on and chased him down the thing. When he didn't want to do the raid, but as soon as it was his job, he went and ordered thousands of sandwiches. He didn't want to do the thing where he injected the ambassador, but he did it, and he did it badly, but he did it anyway, and then he tried to make up for it. He's not weak, he's just scared. And that was really kind of instructive to me. It's like, no matter somebody, maybe this isn't a good thing to say anymore, but I'll say it anyway. Somebody once told me, whether you're big or small or scared or brave or whatever you are, just don't be a bitch, and people will respect you, and so you will find a way to make it. And I think he sort of exemplified that in his movie, because you would think, but he never backs down from anything in the movie. He tries to get out of it, but when he can't, he doesn't back down from it. I always appreciated that.
Also, a piece of a little moment of that's what we used to call filmmaking. You notice how Stallone is towering above Woody Allen?
Yeah. Yeah.
They did some movie magic there because they are not that different in height. Stallone is about 5'8", 5'9", and Woody Allen's about 5'5".
Yeah.
They did some movie magic there to make Stallone look huge.
The guy next to Stallone was way smaller than him too. And yeah, you're right. Stallone is. I never thought about that before. Yeah, they really did. They did a good job of making him look tall.
I mean, I want to stuff Woody Allen in a locker. I'll be honest. Like this whole movie, I just want to stuff him in a locker. But you are right. He does stick up for himself, and he does try and do the right thing. As much as you can say he has a character at all, I did think the breakup scenes were very funny, where she's just like, what is it, that I have bad teeth? No, it's not that you have bad teeth. But everything that she says where she goes, no, it's not because of this. It's not, no, that's not true. It's, yes, that is a fact,
it is
but
true,
it's not the reason.
Not because of that. And what is the reason? By the way, I'm going to tell you, I have had that breakup. I think I've had that breakup many times, which I always appreciated that scene for that. Well, yeah, the romance is really weird too. There was never really somebody, I think it was Gene Siskel, said that you could have cut that relationship totally out of the movie and it wouldn't be very different. And I think that's probably true.
But you could cut most of this movie out of the movie and it wouldn't be totally different.
Yeah, I mean, or you could like write a narrative thread to connect all of these things together, which is weird because I like this movie a lot, and I watch it a lot. I find it really funny. I'm never bored by it. I'm never confused by it. But there's not that much there. But their relation,
mad world, isn't it?
Yeah, but Mad World was they were chasing after a MacGuffin, which if you have characters chasing after a MacGuffin, you're never lost as to what they're doing. Then you can sort of stitch things together and make it a bunch of sketches, because always in the back of your mind you're like, okay, they're trying to get after the money. I guess Woody Allen just kind of wanted to go home, but for a minute. But that was only part of it. I don't know. It was it's harder to do that when you don't have a MacGuffin in the movie. That also was really good. The dynamics of two ostensibly young people kind of getting together, and like when they're trying to engage in adult activities, the lighting's wrong, it's the window isn't open enough, and this thing isn't here, and that kind of stuff was really good. The breakup scene was amazing, maybe one of the best strings of dialogue that he's had in any of his movies. There's a lot of this stuff is some of the best that he's ever done. But yeah, one of the things that I noticed, and this, you wouldn't be really aware of this, not having seen very much at all of his work, but my dad brought this up to me when he and I talked about this movie after I watched it recently. And he brought up the fact that Diane Keaton isn't in this, and Woody Allen hadn't discovered Diane Keaton as his sort of the Abbott to his Costello yet. And I think that made me aware of just how much she brought to his work. And I'm thinking of like Played Again Sam and Sleeper and Love and Death, and which are three of amazing. I'm going to show them to you one of these days. But
this is quite an early film of his, isn't it?
Yeah, it's I think it was his third. There was one whose title escapes me at the moment. There was Take the Money and Run, which was also really wacky and it was pretty funny. And this one. So yeah, but it really made me aware of how much Diane Keaton contributed to his
disjointed then.
Mm-hmm. No, this was very different, even from his other ones. I've seen Take the Money and Run. I haven't seen whatever that other one was called. And Take the Money and Run was very, very well stitched together. I think he just wanted to do kind of a Charlie Chaplin sort of.
I was going to say Laurel and Hardy. is what
Yeah,
it
yeah,
reminds
yeah.
me
So
of a
like an
lot.
old school, and you even get a little bit of that like in the train. It's almost like a silent film. There's just that
Yeah.
old-timey piano playing and stuff. I think he just wanted to do an old-timey sort of visual comedy, and that's fine. It worked. It
It's not
didn't
like anyone
not
makes
work.
them
It just
now.
wasn't. Yeah, yeah, exactly. What we wouldn't give for a movie like that
Well,
today.
Charlie Day tried, but apparently it didn't really work out when it came out.
Oh,
But,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I have notes, mental notes. I didn't actually write down notes this time. I saw it yesterday. Well, I saw the first 60 minutes of it yesterday and the last 20 minutes of it this morning. Here are my, in no particular order, mental notes. Mental note number 1. He's in some contraption where he's doing office work while exercising. And the office worker man is talking about how each aspect of the device works a part of his anatomy. And the guy gets it wrong, like every single time. Like Woody Allen is doing a fucking chest fly. It's clear, like he's pulling his arms in together. It's clearly a fucking chest exercise, and they're going, he's engaging his back right now. It's like, no, he's not. and I was listening, and I'm like, oh, you. The second mental note was when Woody Allen gets it on with the Latina lady. She was much taller than him and had a shredded six-pack, and when they get close, I was almost certain she was going to pick him up. But that didn't happen, and I was disappointed. That was a very easy joke for her to just like sweep him off his feet, and they didn't go for it. The third mental note. So the reason we were talking about this is when you saw Sorcerer, you mistook Francisco Rabal, who played the hitman in Sorcerer, for El Presidente in this. Yeah, you mistook him for him. And were it not for the fact that you're Latino, I would be calling you racist right now. But to be fair, when I saw the film, I was like, I get it. I get why, if you're remembering back from a film you saw a couple years ago, why you go, yeah.
Well, because he was in that hat and glasses, and then Vargas was in the hat and glasses, and they just kind of looked similar, and they sounded a little bit similar. Yeah, they sounded a little bit similar too. So I would have been really excited if it was him, but no, it turns out I was just racist. I'm sorry to say. Was that the extent of your mental notes?
For the moment, yeah.
Yeah. I never, that would have been funnier if she had picked him up. That would have been great. I like that scene though where he was.
Sorry, was you going to say the snake bite where they go earlier? Listen. Yeah, the snake.
And I like the cinematography in that scene too. The when all the men in the whole camp start running after to be the first to get to her, when the camera pans up, and I think it was a crane shot or something. That was really good. Yeah, that was great. What I want to if I can just insert a little bit of commentary here. I also want to highlight the fact that the older generation, of which I am now sadly a part, will often tell the younger generation something to the effect that there's nothing new under the sun. And I remember hearing that a lot in the 90s. If you think about today's sort of climate of political activism, especially among college students, and then young people sort of trying to appear interested in social and political issues in order to impress others, particularly the opposite sex, I think this movie is a perfect demonstration of the fact that there is nothing new about that. That has been true for decades and decades and decades.
Right down to the actual political commentary they were doing, where they were saying that America has a habit of installing dictators and then supporting them. And I heard that and I was like, Yeah, and then as soon as they're looking into him, they're going, but the president is actually Woody Allen, and he's got a history of subversive behaviour. He was at a protest once with a sign. And they're using that to throw the book at him. Like, I mean, you can tell this was made in the 70s, and, like Vietnam...
Yeah, they literally have J. Edgar Hoover in the movie.
Yeah, J. Edgar Hoover. Like, Vietnam was either it just wrapped or was still going.
Oh, it was 70.
And I feel like this is around the time that Castro comes to power as well. In Cuba, and that was kind of on my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, but I just mean that, like, and you're right, I like a lot of stuff they were saying too, and I like a lot of stuff that some contemporary people say about that stuff, but I'm just saying, like, the sort of...
The more they change, the more they stay the same, to quote...
Yeah, the using young, youthful sort of romantic energy as an avenue to get into political stuff is now something of a tradition, and there is nothing different about the way that was done then than there is today, except that today people are sort of in public online.
Yeah, no, that's true. So I said at the start that I feel like I like 55% of this, and the rest of the time I'm just kind of waiting for it to move along. And I was surprised at how thin the movie was, and I felt sometimes watching it that, to me, it felt like he was maybe trying to do a bit of a Laurel and Hardy thing. And there are points where it absolutely works and he's able to do that, but I also felt a lot of the time that for me it wasn't landing. Like, so I have watched a couple old Laurel and Hardy and Charlie Chaplin films and stuff like that, and they are very, very, very good at physical comedy, because that was, for the longest time, literally all they had. And to be honest, it wasn't really until like Abbott and Costello come around that more like verbal comedy starts becoming more mainstream, and like the quick wit, who's on first kind of stuff. And I felt like sometimes I was watching a rehearsal for certain parts, where say for example, you know, when he accidentally drugs all of them and he's trying to hold them all up, it felt like it wasn't quite going far enough. Like, for me, maybe the energy felt a little off. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but say like the humor, say like when he's trying to fix the window and he's going up and down, like that I thought was really funny, and that was working more. But there was just something in it to me that quite often felt off. And I don't think that it's that he wasn't funny in this, because he is funny in it, and I do think that the film is funny more than it's not. It got me. I was laughing at it quite a few times, but I found when I was laughing at it, I was laughing more at stuff like the absurdist raid on the shop, or I was laughing at the breakup scene. I was like, no, it's not because you have bad teeth, stuff like that. And
the interpreter, let's not forget that one.
The interpreter, yes, stuff like that. The interpreter, that was very funny. And I have to wonder, is that what he's more known for?
Yes, he is known for yes.
That's why I was saying, like, is the physical comedy stuff maybe not what he is generally known for? Because that was where I was thinking, like, that sometimes worked. Sometimes it worked, but I felt that a lot of the time it didn't. And I think of, like, I don't know if you've ever really seen, like, a Charlie Chaplin film or anything.
No,
like
I never
that.
have.
Right, Charlie Chaplin is a freak show athlete, basically. Like, he's like a circus performer. Like, he's like falling off of stuff. He's climbing up poles and like balancing and basically doing the Mad Max thing, swaying backwards and forwards, doing crazy stunt work for the sake of the comedy. Or Laurel and Hardy, they're not doing as outlandish stuff as that, but in terms of their slapstick, they're just very, very on time. They just Yeah, they just have very, very good timing for when to make the slapstick joke. And I felt a bit watching this, not that it never worked, but I felt that quite often I felt like I was watching him rehearse to do something that was going to be a lot better in the final film.
Yeah, I get what you mean, and maybe that might have been the case. I know he's the kind of guy who he will use he'll use takes that come off more naturally, or more like in the breakup scene, the girl, she actually messes up one of the lines, and I can't remember what it was, but she says something out of order and then corrects herself, and he'll leave stuff like that in to make it more genuine. But yeah, I get what you mean. And I think I'm not sure, as I think about it, that there had ever been that combination of... Sorry?
I did wonder if some of that was improvised, by the way, that dialogue.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if it was too. And I think... Probably not, but again, leaving in the mistakes and stuff like that, which is something the Coens did too in their movies. I think he was known for doing that. And as you're discussing this, I'm not sure there had ever been that combination of long strings of intelligent. I don't mean intelligent like they're saying profound things. I mean just really that breakup scene, for example, was really smart. The way that it was written, the way it sounds like the way a breakup would actually sound with a person who just can't articulate why they're unhappy. They're just unhappy. I'm not sure there had ever been that combination of that with the physical Charlie Chaplin style comedy before.
Well, I mean,
and yeah, maybe...
Sorry to interrupt you, but like even Rowan Atkinson is known for Mr. Bean, and he's known for Blackadder. Mr. Bean, extraordinary physical comedy. Anyone in the world can get a laugh out of it, even if they don't speak English. Blackadder, if you don't speak English, good luck. It's all wit. It's all about the writing. And Rowan Atkinson is very good at both. And I guess he attempts maybe with the Johnny English films, but generally speaking, I don't find that he makes those things meet either. He tends to be doing one or the other. And he's brilliant at both. He is maybe... Like, you could make an argument that Rowan Atkinson's the best comedic actor ever to do it. And he doesn't tend to blend the two, in my experience, with his films at least.
Yeah, and with this one being a little bit hit or miss, that might be just a combination of the fact that this was one of his earlier films. I'm not sure that the way that it was shot and lit, and I get the caliber of the performances and everything. It might have been the biggest one that he had done, and so. Yeah, and it was all kind of experimental. I mean, nobody really made movies like that then, and nobody really makes movies like that anymore. I gotta say, first of all, I don't think there had ever been a movie with that many like Latino actors in it before, where they were playing, like.
Where they don't West Side Story it and just put
exactly. Yeah, they were actually kind of. I mean, they were performing the sort of stereotype of this sort of revolutionary top politics of their country and whatnot, but when they were talking to him, they were just normal people, and I appreciated that. One other thing I forgot to mention, and this thing will be just as jumbly as the movie, but I had left out the part. There was one very, very short scene when El Presidente was escaping, and he was on a plane, and he was calling a hotel in Miami to go stay there, and his conversation, he was outraged at how expensive the room was. I thought was very good. Just the performances were just excellent. Every one of them did it exactly the way you're supposed to do it. They played it like it was a real movie about a real war.
Every single one of them played it
totally straight. Yeah, they didn't get there. They had to use a different Taylor, and the guys were mad because they liked the original Taylor, and they fucked up their outfits.
And you say about Latino actors, being in the film, because you think that we've covered some other jungle movies. We covered Papillon and we covered Sorcerer, and neither of those films very prominently feature any Latino or indigenous South American people at all.
Yeah.
And of course, there is a difference as well. I think people often think of like people who live in Brazil, Cuba, places like that as being indigenous people who have always been there, but they're for the most part they're not. And there's indigenous groups within that, in the same way that America has their own thing. Like Sorcerer has that cheeky chappie who does the run in front of the van, and Papillon's got that tribe that Papillon stays with for a while, but they didn't feature in any way people from that background in prominent roles, and that continues as well with, say, like Werner Herzog with like Fitzcarraldo, and I think, if I remember them rightly, Aguirre as well, where they're in their jungle movies in the jungle, but they don't feature people from those cultures very prominently at all. And in fairness, Woody Allen's Bananas actually does.
Yeah. There are scenes in that movie where there are many people in the scene. They're all Latino actors. They're all principal characters, and they're all talking to each other, and there's no other people in the scene. That's pretty cool for 1971. I appreciated that a lot when I was watching it, to see those people on scene, and they're all really good actors too. Vargas was excellent. Esposito was excellent. The torture scene where they're making him listen to opera, when they're making him listen to that opera, it was such a they were all just so serious. They were completely serious. The guy was completely serious. Just, oh my god. I figured there wouldn't be a whole lot to say, although there are some mostly talking about the odd structure and the physical comedy and stuff. But I'm glad that you've seen this, because it's one of my favorite comedies. It's something that I put on if I'm in a bad mood and I turn this on. I'm usually not in a bad mood anymore. Again, I never ever would have started anybody with this one, with Woody Allen's work, but we do have a running theme of jungle movies, and it had to be this one. It just had to be this one.
No, absolutely. Well, I guess my closing thoughts with it are, I like it more than I don't, and I don't have the same attachment to it of you growing up having watched it. I can't believe that it is 52 years old. The 70s were 50 years ago. Oh my god.
Yeah. God.
But
oh my god.
But actually, you know what? Before we do wrap, there's something I would say, because you were saying about the way it's shot and the cinematography. I like that this film is shot like a movie. Yeah. And that's a real issue of before comedies, in my opinion, kind of died out altogether, and I feel like we don't really get them at all. That last sort of death throes of the comedies were the Judd Apatow, Seth Rogen comedies, things like that. And I guess maybe because it's the same people, but they had such a distinct look to them, where you just looked at the way they were lit and the way they were coloured, and you knew that it was a comedy. Yeah. Whereas a film like this, or a film like Ghostbusters, or for a modern, wow, not even modern, it was 2007, but a more modern example, a film like Hot Fuzz, which is an amazing film.
Or Tropic Thunder.
Shot like a movie. Tropic Thunder, yeah. Shot like a film. Not shot in a specific comedy way. And I really appreciate that. And no, I like it. I like it more than I don't. I do think it's funny. It had me laughing quite often, but I would be lying if I said I hadn't forgotten quite a bit of it, and I did only watch it this morning.
Well, sure, because you can't really retain, because you're going to remember
so much.
You're going to you're going to remember. Well, you're going to remember the individual, as you say correctly, sketches. You're going to remember the diner scene. You're going to remember the snake bite. You're going to remember the set. You're not really going to remember. And maybe that's it's unique. I can't think of another movie like it that quite does that, except maybe it's almost like I kind of felt like a lot of the Monty Python films turned out to be kind of like that, where they were just sort of sketches that were strung together, probably because they were famous for sketch comedy. Yeah. And that actually is kind of interesting. That was in my house in the 80s. This is why we never watched people get on us for never having watched any of the popular comedies in the 80s, because in my house there was British comedy. I don't even know if this is okay to say anymore, but I'll just say there was British comedy and Jewish comedy, and those were sort of the two. Those were sort of the range that we had growing up. Final thought: what did you think? This being your first experience, what do you think of Woody Allen as a director?
I couldn't tell you, because I didn't feel like I really saw a coherent vision for what it was meant to be. And I intellectually know that this isn't meant to be a great example of his work. Not that it's a bad film or anything like that, but this isn't the one that people bring up to you when you talk about Woody Allen. You know, people bring up Love and Death and you know, everything you always want to know about sex, stuff like that. So I couldn't completely tell you based on this, and I can only go based on this and not, you know, Midnight in Paris.
Yeah, sure. Well, fair enough.
Yeah, I wish I could give you a better answer.
No, it's okay. Maybe going on, I'm sure I'm going to show you all the rest of them, all the rest of them that I like anyway.
And he's done a lot of films. He's got a film coming out this year as well. Yeah,
I think his last. Let's see, what's the timeline? Let me just look at his filmography real quick. Really quick. Let's see. Manhattan. Yeah, I think his anything after 1977, I just totally checked out of. So it's basically 69 to 77 is his.
The Gabe years.
Either the Gabe years, yeah. All right, well, that, ladies and gentlemen, was Bananas. I highly recommend, if you like just sitting down and watching stuff that'll give you a lot of laughs, I highly recommend it. Yeah, good times.
Join us next time. Bye.
Bye.